Some people say I'm heartless. Maybe they're right. I slammed down my gavel so hard the crack echoed through my courtroom, silencing the defense attorney mid-plea. 10 years, no parole. Next case. I watched the defendant crumple as the bailiff led him away. Another drug dealer off the streets of Greensboro. The defense attorney shot me a look that could curdle milk. I'd seen it all before. Judge Eden Williams, the ice queen of district court. Your Honor, if I might. You might not, I cut him off. We're adjourned. I gathered my papers, ignoring the whispers. Harsh, perhaps. But I didn't earn my reputation by being soft. Rules are what separate us from animals. Break them, pay the price. My black robe billowed behind me as I retreated to my chambers. Friday evening stretched before me, another weekend alone with case files and a bottle of Cabernet. The thought should have depressed me, but solitude was my closest companion these days. By 7, I'd shed my judicial persona and slipped into dark jeans and a cream silk blouse. Downtown Market was bustling with weekend shoppers seeking artisanal goods and overpriced produce. I wasn't sure why I came. Something about needing to be around normal people living their lives. The gourmet section beckoned with its specialty cheeses. I needed something to complement my wine. Care to sample our new-aged Gouda? I turned toward the voice and paused. The woman behind the counter was striking, golden blonde waves framing a face that belonged in magazines, not selling cheese. Her brown eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. It's infused with truffle oil, she added, cutting a small piece. I'm not usually one for samples, I said, instantly regretting my curt tone. She laughed. Everyone says that right before they try one. Something in her confidence made me relent. I reached for the offering, and our fingers brushed. A small jolt of something traveled up my arm. Oh! She looked as surprised as I felt. Then it happened. The sample slipped, and as I lunged to catch it, my elbow knocked into an open wine bottle on the counter. Burgundy liquid splashed across my silk blouse like evidence of a crime scene. Damn it, I hissed, grabbing for napkins. I'm so sorry. She rushed around the counter, dabbing at my chest with a clean cloth. Let me help. Stop! I stepped back, mortified by her proximity and the growing stain. This blouse costs more than you probably make in a day. Her expression shifted from concern to something harder. Well, Your Honor, maybe next time wear something more appropriate for grocery shopping. I froze. You know who I am? Everyone knows the infamous Judge Williams. She handed me more napkins. I'm Claire Young, and contrary to your assessment of my income, I own this entire booth. It's my family business. I felt heat rising to my cheeks, embarrassment surely. Not because of how her eyes held mine with surprising defiance. The cheese, I said suddenly. What? It reminded me of something. My grandmother used to make a pasta with truffles when I was young. Claire's expression softened slightly. Food has memory. That's why I do this. For a moment we just looked at each other. Something electric filled the small space between us. Take this, she said finally, wrapping a generous portion of cheese. On the house. For your trouble. I caused the trouble, I admitted, surprising myself. Then consider it a bribe for leniency should I ever end up in your courtroom. A small smile tugged at her lips. I actually laughed, a sound so foreign it startled me. I don't take bribes, Miss Young. Claire, she corrected. And everyone has their price, Judge Williams, even you. I took the cheese, oddly flustered. Eden, I said. Outside the courtroom, I'm just Eden. Walking away, I could feel her eyes on my back. The silk blouse was ruined, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Something about that brief encounter had left me feeling more alive than I had in months. Little did I know, Monday morning would bring Claire Young into my courtroom for real, and my carefully ordered world would never be the same. Monday morning arrived with a headache and the lingering scent of that damn truffle cheese. I'd eaten half the block over the weekend, each bite reminding me of blonde waves and challenging brown eyes. I straightened my charcoal suit and adjusted my collar, hiding any trace of the woman who'd spent Sunday night with case files spread across her bed. Judge Williams was back on duty. First case, my clerk announced as I settled behind the bench. I glanced down at the docket and nearly choked on my coffee. Young family artisanal foods versus creditors, bankruptcy protection filing. And there she was, looking nothing like the confident cheese vendor from the market. Claire Young sat beside her attorney in a modest navy dress, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Our eyes met briefly before I forced my gaze to the paperwork. Professional, detached, that's what this required. "Counsel, your opening statements," I said, my voice betraying nothing of my inner turmoil. Claire's attorney stood. "Your Honor, Young Family Artisanal Foods has been a Greensboro institution for 3 generations. Recent market pressures and suspicious equipment failures have created temporary financial strain, but the company remains fundamentally sound." I nodded, watching Claire from the corner of my eye. She sat straighter now, chin up. The fighter I'd glimpsed at the market was still there. The opposing counsel, representing a coalition of creditors, painted a different picture: mismanagement, outdated business model, unsalvageable debt. "We recommend immediate liquidation of assets," he concluded. Claire's face paled, but she didn't flinch. "I'll review the filings and schedule a follow-up hearing next week," I announced, banging my gavel before I could do something stupid like rule immediately in her favor. Back in my chambers, I closed the door and leaned against it. This was problematic. I should recuse myself. I'd met her outside of court. There was something. Not bias exactly, but not proper judicial distance either. Yet, I didn't call my clerk to reassign the case. Instead, I spent my lunch break researching Young Family Artisanal Foods, 3rd-generation business, award-winning products, recent expansions that stretched their capital thin, then a series of equipment failures that screamed sabotage rather than coincidence. My phone rang, startling me from my internet rabbit hole. "Eden, darling," came the smooth voice of James Cook, managing partner at Greensboro's most prestigious law firm. "And, as of 6 months ago, my reluctant fiancé. We need to confirm our attendance at the Chamber of Commerce dinner." "I'll be there," I said, closing the browser window on Claire's company website. "Good. The firm needs this merger to happen. The Williams name still carries weight in this town." That's all it was to him, a merger. 2 legal dynasties joining forces. My father's old firm absorbed into his larger one, with our engagement as the public face of the consolidation. A marriage of convenience that would save my family's business legacy. "I've got a full docket, James. We'll talk later." I hung up before he could respond. The weight of obligation hung heavy around my neck. What choice did I have? The firm my grandfather built was sinking. The partners, my father's old friends, would lose everything without this merger. My computer pinged with a new email. The quarterly financial report for the firm. I glanced at the numbers and felt the familiar knot in my stomach tighten. We were bleeding money faster than expected. On impulse, I pulled up the ownership records for the creditors in Claire's case. Most were banks, but one name caught my eye: Cookhaven Industries, a subsidiary of Cook Enterprises, James's family business. My blood ran cold. James was trying to force Claire's company into liquidation. If I stayed on this case, I'd be ruling on a matter where my fiancé had direct financial interest. I should recuse myself immediately. That was the ethical thing to do, the only thing to do. Instead, I closed the file and made a decision that would change everything. I called my assistant. "Cancel my afternoon. I need to visit the farmer's market again." 2 hours later, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap pulled low, I was buying cheese from a confused teenage employee at Claire's stall. "Is the owner around?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Ms. Young? She's in the back office." I nodded my thanks and slipped through the market crowd, following the signs to the administrative area. What was I doing? This was career suicide if anyone found out. Still, I knocked on the door marked management. "Come in," called the voice I'd been hearing in my head since Friday night. I stepped inside, removing my sunglasses. Claire looked up from her desk, surrounded by invoices. Recognition dawned on her face, followed by confusion, then wariness. "Judge Williams," she said, standing slowly. "I believe this constitutes an ex parte communication about an active case." I closed the door behind me. "That's exactly why I'm here." Claire's office was cluttered but organized. Like her mind, I'd soon learn. Stacks of invoices, product designs, and family photos created a fortress around her desk. "You shouldn't be here," she said, but made no move to call anyone or ask me to leave. "I know." I removed my ridiculous hat. "I should recuse myself from your case." Her eyebrows rose. "Then why haven't you?" Good question. One I'd been asking myself the entire drive over. There's something about your case that doesn't add up. The equipment failures, the sudden cash flow problems. You believe me? Her voice softened with surprise. I haven't decided what I believe, I lied, but there's a conflict of interest you should be aware of. The main creditor pushing for liquidation is connected to my fiancé's family. Fiancé? Something flickered across her face. Disappointment? I didn't know you were engaged. It's not. I stumbled, unsure how to explain a relationship based on financial salvation rather than love. It's complicated. Claire nodded slowly. Business arrangements often are? The way she said it made me wonder if she saw right through me. I cleared my throat. I came to warn you. If I recuse myself, the case will go to Judge Harmon. He's practically in the cook's pocket. And you're not? Challenge returned to her eyes. No. The word came out fiercer than intended. I'm not in anyone's pocket. She studied me for a long moment. Why do you care what happens to my little company? I had no good answer. I don't like seeing justice manipulated. A gentle rain began pattering against the windows, matching the rhythm of my quickening pulse. This entire encounter was improper, yet I couldn't make myself leave. I should go, I said, not moving. Yes, you should. She stood, coming around her desk. But first, tell me why you're really here, Eden. My name on her lips sent an electric current down my spine. No one called me Eden anymore, not even James. I was always Judge Williams or occasionally Darling in James's most patronizing tone. I don't know, I admitted. She stepped closer. I think you do. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the roof. In that small office, with financial ruin threatening us both for different reasons, something dangerous and exhilarating crackled between us. Your cheese, I blurted out. It reminded me of my grandmother. Before the bench, before law school, before everything became about appearances and position. Her expression softened. Food has memory. I told you that. No one's reminded me of who I was before the robe in a very long time. Claire took another step toward me, close enough that I could smell vanilla and cinnamon on her skin. And who were you, Judge Williams? Someone who didn't hide behind rules and procedures. Someone who wasn't afraid. Afraid of what? Her voice had dropped to a near whisper. The rain suddenly intensified, and a crack of thunder made us both jump. The moment broke and I stepped back, returning to my senses. I should never have come. This was completely inappropriate. I reached for the door handle. Claire caught my wrist. Wait, the storm's getting worse. At least let it ease up before you go. As if responding to her words, lightning flashed, immediately followed by a deafening thunderclap. The lights flickered once, twice, then plunged us into darkness. Damn it, Claire muttered. I heard her moving around in the dark, then the beam of a phone flashlight cut through the blackness. Power outages are common here during storms. The backup generator should kick in soon. Her face, illuminated from below, looked otherworldly and even more beautiful. I swallowed hard. I've made a terrible mistake coming here, I said. She moved closer, the light between us creating strange shadows. Maybe. Or maybe it's the first right thing you've done in a long time. Her free hand reached up, hovering near my face as if she might brush away a strand of my hair. My breath caught in my throat. For one wild moment, I thought she might kiss me. More shockingly, I wanted her to. The lights blazed back to life, and we jumped apart like guilty teenagers. I have to go, I said, gathering my composure and ridiculous disguise. Forget I was ever here. I don't think that's possible, Claire said softly. I fled into the rain without an umbrella, letting the downpour soak through my clothes. Perhaps it could wash away the unprofessional, unethical thoughts racing through my mind. Perhaps it could douse the fire that had sparked in that small office when Claire Young had almost, but not quite, touched my face. Back in my car, dripping wet and trembling, I made a decision that would change everything. I wouldn't recuse myself. I would stay on the case, find the truth, and deliver justice, even if it meant confronting my fiancé's family. Even if it meant questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. The next morning, I did something I'd never done in my judicial career. I abused my power. Ms. Young, I said from the bench, voice formal despite the memory of rain and near touches still burning in my mind. This court requests your presence in chambers to discuss settlement options. Her attorney looked surprised. These discussions typically included counsel, but Claire nodded, understanding passing between us like a secret handshake. 10 minutes later, she sat across from me in my private chambers, the mahogany desk between us like necessary armor. This is irregular, she said, smoothing her skirt. Everything about this situation is irregular. I removed my judicial robe, hanging it carefully on the rack. Without it, in just my silk blouse and pencil skirt, I felt exposed. I've been researching your company's troubles. Claire's eyes widened. You have? I slid a folder across the desk. 3 major equipment failures in 6 months. All different systems, all catastrophic, all just after maintenance visits from the same contractor. Superior Maintenance Services, Claire said, opening the file. They came highly recommended when our usual company went out of business. By whom? A business advisor. He said they specialized in food production equipment. Who was this advisor? She flipped through her phone. Andrew Mercer, from Cook Consulting. I leaned back, pieces clicking into place. Cook Consulting is a subsidiary of Cook Enterprises. My fiancé's family business. Claire's face hardened. Are you saying they deliberately sabotaged my equipment? I'm saying it's worth investigating before you surrender your family legacy. Our eyes locked across the desk. Something shifted between us, a partnership forming, dangerous and exhilarating. Why are you helping me? She asked. I had no good answer that wouldn't reveal too much. Justice matters to me. Just justice? Her question hung in the air between us. Before I could formulate a response, my intercom buzzed. Judge Williams, the Greensboro Children's Hospital Charity Gala Committee is on line 1. Something about your seating arrangement for Saturday. The gala. I'd completely forgotten. I'll call them back. Claire stood, gathering her documents. I should go. Thank you for this information, Your Honor. Wait. The word escaped before I could stop it. Will you be at the charity gala Saturday? She looked surprised. I donated some gift baskets, but I wasn't planning to attend. It's $500 a plate. Come as my guest, I said impulsively. Many potential clients attend. It could help your business. What was I doing? Inviting Claire to an event where my fiancé would be present was madness. Won't your fiancé mind? She asked, echoing my thoughts. He'll be networking all night. He won't notice. Claire studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, I accept. Saturday night arrived with a flurry of anxiety I hadn't experienced since my first day on the bench. I chose a midnight blue gown that my stylist once claimed made my eyes look like storm clouds gathering. James picked me up in his Bentley, barely noticing my appearance beyond a perfunctory "you look nice." The grand ballroom of the Greensboro Plaza Hotel glittered with wealth and influence. James immediately disappeared into a cluster of potential clients, leaving me to make small talk with the mayor's wife. And then Claire walked in. She wore a simple emerald dress that caught the light when she moved, her blonde hair swept up to reveal the elegant curve of her neck. Heads turned. Mine wasn't the only one. Excuse me, I murmured to the mayor's wife, drawn across the room like a ship to a lighthouse. You came, I said, stopping before her. I said I would. Her eyes took in my gown. You look different outside the courtroom. Good different or bad different? Just different. A small smile played at her lips, more real. We circulated together, ostensibly so I could introduce her to potential clients. In reality, I simply wanted to remain in her orbit, watching how she charmed even the stuffiest executives with her genuine passion for artisanal food. Hours later, after speeches and auctions, we found ourselves alone on a deserted balcony overlooking the city lights. Thank you for tonight, Claire said, leaning against the stone balustrade. I think I secured at least 2 new corporate accounts. I'm glad. I joined her at the railing, close enough that our arms nearly touched. The night air carried the scent of her perfume, something clean and citrusy. Why did you really invite me, Eden? The use of my first name, so intimate in the darkness, sent shivers down my spine. I turned to face her, and found her already looking at me, eyes reflecting the distant city lights. I think you know. She stepped closer. I need to hear you say it. Before I could find the words, her hand reached up, gently brushing a strand of hair from my face. Her fingers lingered near my cheek, warm and electric. "Eden!" James's voice shattered the moment. "There you are. The hospital board wants to meet you." Claire stepped back instantly, professional mask sliding into place. James approached, his gaze flickering briefly over her. "James Cook," he said, extending his hand. "Eden's fiancé." "Claire Young," she replied coolly. "Judge Williams has been kind enough to introduce me to potential clients." "Young? From that little cheese shop in bankruptcy?" His dismissive tone made my skin crawl. "Actually, my company is acquiring those assets soon. Perhaps you could work for us after the liquidation." I watched the color drain from Claire's face, replaced by a fury that made her even more beautiful. "James," I interjected, "Claire is my guest, and that case is still pending in my court." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course. No shop talk at charity events. How rude of me." But the moment was ruined, the connection broken. As James led me away, I glanced back to see Claire standing alone on the balcony, her expression unreadable in the shadows. The weekend after the gala passed in a fog of conflicted emotions. I sat in my home office Sunday night, surrounded by legal precedents and bankruptcy statutes, but my mind kept wandering to Claire, her eyes in the ballroom lights, her fingers near my cheek. My phone chimed with a text from James. "Dinner tomorrow with the merger committee. Don't be late." I didn't respond. Instead, I found myself paging through Claire's case file again. Something about the timing of her company's troubles nagged at me. The equipment failures began 3 months ago, exactly when James's family company started showing interest in acquiring artisanal food producers in the region. My judicial ethics training screamed warnings in my head. I was crossing lines that could end my career, yet I couldn't stop. Monday morning in court, I made my decision. "In the matter of Young Family Artisanal Foods," I announced, "this court orders a 60-day stay on all collection activities pending further investigation into potentially fraudulent business interference." Claire's attorney looked stunned by this unexpected victory. The creditor's lawyer immediately objected. "Your Honor, there's no evidence." "The court has received information suggesting possible corporate sabotage," I interrupted. "If counsel wishes to contest this stay, we can discuss the evidence in detail." I met his gaze steadily. He backed down knowing that Cook Enterprises wouldn't want that kind of scrutiny. As everyone filed out, Claire caught my eye. A small nod passed between us, acknowledgement of the risk I'd taken for her. That afternoon, thunder rolled across Greensboro again. I was reviewing cases when my office phone rang. "Judge Williams," I answered. "I need to see you." Claire's voice was urgent. "I found something." "My chambers, 20 minutes, I said without hesitation. When she arrived, she was soaking wet, clutching a waterproof document case. "I didn't have time to wait for the rain to stop," she explained. "Water dripping onto my carpet." "Here." I handed her my suit jacket. Our fingers brushed, and that now familiar electricity sparked between us. She spread documents across my desk. "These are maintenance records from Superior Maintenance. A former employee reached out after seeing an article about our bankruptcy filing." I leaned over the papers, our shoulders nearly touching. "They were instructed to sabotage the equipment?" "Look at the service orders. Each one has a special notation. Implement Protocol C3. "What's Protocol C3? "According to my source, it's code for controlled failure. Damage that appears accidental but will cause catastrophic breakdown within 48 hours. I sank into my chair. "This is direct evidence of corporate sabotage." Claire paced my office. "But the employee won't testify. He's afraid." "Without testimony, this is just circumstantial." Outside, lightning flashed, followed immediately by a deafening thunderclap. The lights flickered and died. "Power's out," I said needlessly, fumbling for my phone's flashlight. Claire's face appeared in the beam, tense but determined. "What do we do now?" "We need more evidence connecting this to Cook Enterprises." She moved closer in the darkness. "Why are you risking everything for me?" The question hung between us, demanding truth. In the anonymity of the blackout, I found courage. "Because you remind me of who I used to be, before I started compromising." And who was that? Someone who believed in justice more than convenience. Someone who followed her heart. Claire's hand found mine in the darkness. "Your hands are trembling." "I know." We stood like that, connected in the darkness, neither speaking. Then, slowly, she moved closer. I felt her breath, warm against my cheek. "Eden," she whispered, "I think I'm falling for you." The confession, so raw and honest, broke something loose inside me. All the proper reasons to step away dissolved in the darkness. Without my robe, without the bench, without the lights of scrutiny, I was just a woman drawn to another woman's quiet strength and beauty. Her lips found mine, tentative at first, then with growing certainty. I pulled her closer, tasting rain and possibility on her tongue. Her hand slid into my hair, cradling my head as if I were something precious. We broke apart at the sudden hum of the building's generator. Emergency lights bathed the room in soft amber glow. Claire stepped back, touching her lips. "I shouldn't have done that." "We shouldn't have," I corrected, not wanting her to bear the blame alone. She gathered the documents, hands unsteady. "This changes everything." "I know." My career, my engagement, my carefully constructed life, all suddenly balanced on a knife's edge. "What happens now?" she asked. I straightened my blouse, trying to regain composure. "We keep looking for evidence. And I trailed off, uncertain how to finish. Claire nodded, understanding my unspoken conflict. She headed for the door, then turned back. "Whatever you decide, Eden, thank you for being the one person who believed in me." After she left, I sat in my dimly lit office, the taste of her still on my lips, knowing I would never see my life the same way again. I spent 3 days avoiding Claire's calls. 3 days pretending that kiss hadn't rearranged everything inside me. 3 days trying to convince myself I could still marry James and fulfill my obligations to my family's firm. The engagement dinner couldn't have come at a worse time. "You need to wear the diamond tonight," James reminded me over the phone. "The senior partners will expect to see it." I glanced at the ostentatious ring in its velvet box, untouched since he'd presented it at a firm dinner 6 months ago. I'd never worn it outside of official functions. It felt like a shackle. "Of course," I replied mechanically. The restaurant was Greensboro's finest. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, wait staff that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Partners from both firms and their spouses filled the private dining room, all there to celebrate our upcoming merger. I smiled. I nodded. I played my part while feeling increasingly like a stranger in my own skin. "Judge Williams, what a pleasure." I turned at the familiar voice, wine sloshing dangerously in my glass. There stood Claire, stunning in a tailored black pantsuit, her blonde hair loose around her shoulders. "Ms. Young," I managed, fighting to keep my expression neutral while my heart hammered against my ribs. "What a surprise." "Claire is a friend of the Hendersons," explained Martha, one of our senior partners, gesturing toward a couple across the room. "When I mentioned our celebration, they insisted on bringing her." "How fortunate," I said weakly. James appeared at my side, his hand possessively at my waist. "Ms. Young, we meet again. I trust you're not discussing your case with the judge?" Claire's smile never reached her eyes. "Not at all. I was about to congratulate her on your engagement. When is the wedding?" 3 months, James answered before I could speak. "Once the merger is finalized." "So efficient," Claire said, maintaining her composure perfectly while I struggled to breathe. "Both personal and professional unions at once." "The Williams name still carries weight in legal circles," James continued, "though Eden's father's firm has seen better days. This merger secures everyone's future." I saw Claire processing this information, understanding at last the cold business arrangement that was my engagement. "If you'll excuse me," I murmured, needing escape. The dinner progressed torturously. From across the table, I felt Claire's eyes on me throughout the toasts and forced laughter. When the dessert arrived, the conversation turned to recent cases. "I heard you issued a stay in the Young Foods bankruptcy," said Peterson, one of James's partners. "Unusual move given the evidence." "What evidence might that be?" I asked carefully. "The financial records clearly show mismanagement," he continued. "My client, one of the creditors, provided quite detailed analysis." His slip didn't go unnoticed. Claire set down her fork. "Which creditor would that be, Mr. Peterson?" He hesitated, realizing his mistake. "Cookhaven Industries, I believe," I interjected, watching his face. "A subsidiary of Cook Enterprises, correct?" An uncomfortable silence fell across the table. "You seem remarkably well informed about the case details, Judge Williams." Peterson said, his tone suddenly cooler. It's my job to be informed about cases in my court. Including details not entered into evidence? James asked quietly. The room seemed to hold its breath. In my peripheral vision, I saw Claire tense. I've reviewed all properly submitted filings, I replied evenly. Perhaps you'd care to discuss what wasn't submitted, James? Like the connection between Superior Maintenance and Cook Enterprises? His face hardened. This isn't the appropriate venue for this discussion. I agree. I stood, placing my napkin beside my barely touched meal. Please excuse me. I escaped to the restaurant's garden, a small courtyard with a fountain and rose bushes illuminated by subtle landscape lighting. The night air cooled my flushed cheeks as I tried to steady my breathing. Eden. I didn't turn at Claire's voice. You shouldn't be out here with me. I didn't know about the dinner, she said, moving beside me. The Hendersons invited me last minute. I would never have come if... It doesn't matter. I finally faced her. You see now what I'm trapped in. A business arrangement disguised as a marriage. You don't have to go through with it. Don't I? My family's legacy, my father's firm, dozens of jobs, all depending on this merger. Claire stepped closer. What about what you want, Eden? What about your happiness? Happiness is a luxury I can't afford. That's not true. Her hand touched my face, gentle as a whisper. Everyone deserves happiness, even harsh judges with tough exteriors. Despite everything, I smiled. Is that how you see me? I see someone extraordinary pretending to be ordinary to please everyone else. Her words undid me. In that moment, surrounded by roses and moonlight, I stopped fighting the inevitable. I leaned forward and kissed her, pouring weeks of longing into a single connection. Her response was immediate, arms encircling my neck, body pressing against mine. This kiss wasn't tentative like our first. It was certain, passionate, a declaration. When we broke apart, breathless, I knew my life had irrevocably changed course. I can't marry him, I whispered against her lips. I know, she answered, holding me close as if to protect me from what was coming. Behind us, the garden door opened. We separated instantly, but not quickly enough. Eden? James stood framed in the doorway, his expression moving from confusion to comprehension to cold rage. What the hell is this? James, I can explain, I said, the words hollow even to my own ears. What explanation could possibly suffice? No need. His voice was ice. I always wondered why you kept postponing the wedding. Now I know you prefer alternative arrangements. Claire stepped forward. Mr. Cook, this isn't... Silence. He cut her off with a raised hand. You've already taken enough from me. I moved between them. James, this has nothing to do with Claire's case. His bitter laugh echoed in the garden. Of course it does. You've compromised yourself completely, Eden. Your career, our merger, everything. For what? Some dalliance with a bankrupt cheesemaker? Don't speak about her that way. My voice sharpened to the edge I usually reserved for contemptuous defendants. James's eyes narrowed. I have emails, Eden, between you and Ms. Young. My IT team flagged them weeks ago, but I dismissed their concerns. I trusted you. My blood ran cold. The emails discussing evidence, arranging meetings, all from my judicial account. Strictly speaking, ex parte communications that could end my career. You had no right to access my emails, I said. I had every right to protect our interests. He straightened his tie. I'll expect your formal recusal from the Young case by morning, the ring back by noon. As for the merger, he shrugged. Your father's partners will be disappointed. The threat hung in the air. All those jobs, my family legacy, gone because I'd chosen my heart over obligation. James, I said softer now, we both know this marriage was never about love. Something flickered across his face, perhaps regret, or simply calculation. Love is irrelevant. We had an arrangement. I'm withdrawing from that arrangement. He studied me for a long moment. You'll regret this, Eden. When the ethics committee reviews your conduct, when your father's firm collapses, when you're left with nothing but your indiscretion. His gaze flicked dismissively to Claire. After he stalked back into the restaurant, we stood in silence, the garden suddenly feeling much colder. I'm so sorry, Claire whispered. This is all my fault. I turned to her. No. For the first time in years, I've made a choice that's truly mine. Whatever happens next, I'll face it. He'll ruin you. He'll try. We slipped out through the garden gate, avoiding the awkwardness of returning through the dining room. Claire insisted on driving me home, neither of us speaking much during the journey. The weight of consequences hung between us. At my door, she hesitated. What happens now? Professionally, I recuse myself from your case tomorrow. Personally, I touched her cheek. I need time. This is all happening so fast. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I'll wait, however long you need. After she left, I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and sat in my darkened living room. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from James, from partners at the firm. Even one from my father's oldest friend asking what the hell I was thinking. I ignored them all, instead opening my laptop to draft my recusal. It was the right thing to do, the only ethical choice remaining. Yet as I typed the formal language, I felt a strange sense of liberation rather than defeat. Morning brought clarity and a new determination. I delivered my recusal personally to the clerk, then cleared my calendar for the day. There was one more thing I needed to do. Claire answered her door looking tired but resolute. Eden, what are you doing here? James threatened you last night. I want to know if anything's happened. She hesitated. I received a call this morning from Cook Enterprises' legal department. They've made a final offer for my assets. The quotation marks were audible in her tone. Accept their lowball figure by tomorrow, or they'll tie me up in litigation for years. Intimidation tactics, I said, anger burning through me. Classic. It's working. I can't afford extended legal battles. She ran a hand through her hair. Maybe I should take their offer. At least then my employees would get something. No. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. We're not letting them win. Not like this. Eden, you've already risked everything. And I'd do it again. I took her hands in mine. Claire, meeting you woke me up from a life I was sleepwalking through. I won't let them bully you into submission now. Her eyes filled with tears. Why? Why fight so hard for me? The answer came easily, rising from a place of truth I'd kept buried too long. Because I'm falling in love with you. She pulled me close, our foreheads touching. I'm scared, Eden. So am I. But we're stronger together. That evening, we sat at Claire's kitchen table surrounded by documents, building a defense strategy. When exhaustion finally claimed us, we fell asleep on her couch, my head on her shoulder, her arms around me. 2 women united against the machine trying to crush them both. I woke briefly in the night to find Claire watching me, her expression tender in the moonlight streaming through the windows. What? I murmured sleepily. I just never thought I'd have a federal judge drooling on my sweater. I laughed softly. Former federal judge, possibly. The ethics committee meets next week. She tightened her arms around me. Whatever happens, we face it together. I nodded against her shoulder, allowing myself to believe, just for that moment, that love really could conquer all, even Cook Enterprises. The next week passed in a blur of legal documents and midnight strategy sessions. After my recusal, Claire's case had indeed gone to Judge Harmon, Cook's longtime golf buddy. We needed something substantial to prevent the liquidation ruling that now seemed inevitable. I'd called in every favor, consulted every contact who wouldn't immediately report me to the ethics committee. Most doors slammed in my face. My relationship with Claire, whatever we were calling it, had spread through legal circles like wildfire. Former colleagues crossed the street to avoid me. This is pointless, I said one evening, tossing another dead-end document onto Claire's kitchen table. Without someone willing to testify about the sabotage, we have nothing but circumstantial evidence. Claire looked up from her laptop. Then we need to find someone willing to talk. Who? Everyone at Superior Maintenance is terrified of Cook Enterprises. Not everyone. She spun her laptop toward me. Andrew Mercer. The business advisor who recommended Superior Maintenance? Former business advisor, she corrected. According to this industry newsletter, he was fired 3 weeks ago. Something about philosophical differences with management. I leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. Our faces nearly touched, a proximity that still made my heart race despite our more intimate moments. You think he'd talk? I asked. People who feel wronged often want revenge. 2 days later, we sat across from Andrew Mercer in a nondescript coffee shop 50 miles outside Greensboro. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the haunted look of someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. I didn't know what they were planning at first, he explained, voice barely above a whisper. I was told to recommend superior maintenance to targeted businesses, companies Cook wanted to acquire cheaply. And when did you realize what was happening? I asked. When the equipment started failing exactly as predicted in our acquisition timeline. He sipped his coffee with shaking hands. They had it all mapped out. Which companies, which equipment, which dates. Do you have documentation? Claire asked. He nodded, sliding a USB drive across the table. Everything. Emails, meeting minutes, the sabotage protocols. I kept it all as insurance when things started feeling wrong. Why come forward now? I asked. Because I have a conscience. And because they screwed me over too. His bitter laugh reminded me of James in the garden. Promised me partnership, then fired me when I questioned the ethics. Will you testify? Claire pressed. On the record? He hesitated. Cook will destroy me. They'll try, I said. But with this evidence and your testimony, we can stop them. And the publicity will protect you. That night, reviewing the files in Claire's living room, we realized we had struck gold. Internal emails explicitly directed the sabotage of Claire's equipment, with James himself copied on several messages. This is it, I breathed. Hardly daring to believe our luck. This proves conspiracy and corporate espionage. Claire's eyes shone with unshed tears. We can save the company. Not just that. We can expose Cook Enterprises' entire operation. How many other businesses have they done this to? She took my hand. You realize what this means for you? Going against James publicly like this. I know. The ethics committee would almost certainly censure me for my involvement with Claire while her case was before me. My judicial career was likely over. Some things matter more than career advancement. Eden? She moved closer, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. No regrets, I whispered, meaning it completely. We worked through the night preparing the evidence for Claire's new attorney, a fearless litigator who specialized in corporate fraud cases. By morning, we had assembled a damning presentation. The final hearing came 3 days later. I sat in the back of Judge Harmon's courtroom, no longer in judicial robes but a simple charcoal suit. Claire sat at the plaintiff's table, back straight, head high. Her attorney laid out the evidence methodically. Andrew Mercer testified, voice growing stronger with each damning detail he revealed. Cook's lawyers objected repeatedly, but the evidence was too compelling to dismiss. When Claire took the stand, she spoke with quiet dignity about generations of family legacy nearly destroyed by corporate greed. Her eyes found mine once during her testimony, a moment of connection that sent whispers rippling through the courtroom. Miss Young, Cook's attorney began his cross-examination with a sneer. Isn't it true your relationship with Judge Williams began while she was still presiding over this case? Before Claire could answer, her attorney objected. Irrelevant and prejudicial. Goes to witness credibility, Cook's attorney insisted. Judge Harmon, looking increasingly uncomfortable as the evidence mounted against his friends, reluctantly allowed the question. Claire straightened in her seat. Judge Williams recused herself precisely because we developed feelings for each other. Her integrity is why we're all here today. Because she chose truth over convenience, justice over personal gain. Her answer, so simple and direct, silenced the courtroom. When the testimony concluded, Judge Harmon had no choice but to rule in Claire's favor. The evidence of sabotage was irrefutable. He ordered all collection activities permanently stayed and recommended criminal investigation into Cook Enterprises practices. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Through the chaos, I caught sight of James watching from the steps, his expression unreadable as his world began to crumble around him. 6 months can change everything. I stood before the Judicial Review Board, hands steady despite the gravity of the moment. 5 stern faces watched me from behind a curved oak table, former colleagues now sitting in judgment. Judge Williams, began the chairwoman, this board has reviewed the evidence regarding your conduct in Young Family Artisanal Foods v. Creditors. I maintained my composure, though inside my stomach churned. After the Cook Enterprises scandal broke, my improper communications with Claire while presiding over her case had come under scrutiny. Career suicide, as predicted. You acknowledge communicating ex parte with a litigant before your court, she continued. You further acknowledge developing a personal relationship with said litigant before recusing yourself. I do, I answered simply. No excuses, no justifications. The typical sanction for such violations is censure, possibly permanent removal from the bench. I nodded, accepting the inevitable. After exposing Cook Enterprises, I'd known this day would come. What I hadn't expected was the strange peace I felt facing it. The door at the back of the hearing room opened. I didn't turn, assuming it was another board member arriving late. Chairwoman Bennett, the board has received additional testimony I'd like to present, said a familiar voice. Claire. I turned, seeing her walk confidently down the center aisle in a tailored blue suit that matched her conviction. Ms. Young, the chairwoman acknowledged with surprise. This is irregular. The subject of your testimony is precisely why we're here. Which is why you should hear me, Claire countered. I'm not here to deny the facts. I'm here to provide context about Judge Williams' character. The board members exchanged glances, then nodded. Proceed. Claire approached the podium beside me, our shoulders nearly touching. Judge Williams could have looked the other way. She could have allowed corrupt practices to continue unchallenged. Instead, she risked everything to ensure justice was served. She turned slightly toward me. Yes, we developed feelings for each other. Yes, there were communications that crossed professional lines. But every action Eden took was in service of truth and justice, the very principles you've sworn to uphold. The room fell silent when she finished. The chairwoman cleared her throat. Thank you, Ms. Young. The board will now deliberate. Outside in the corridor, Claire took my hand. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. Thank you for coming, I said, though it probably won't change their minds. Maybe not. But I couldn't let them judge you without seeing the whole picture. 2 hours later, I received their decision, censure, but not disbarment. I could never return to the bench, but I could still practice law. It felt like both punishment and freedom. Autumn in Greensboro painted the trees in fiery colors as life found new rhythms. I accepted a position teaching ethics at the law school, ironic perhaps, but who better to teach about boundaries than someone who had crossed them for the right reasons? Claire's business not only survived but thrived. The publicity from the Cook Enterprises scandal had turned young family artisanal foods into something of a folk hero in the business community. She'd expanded to 3 locations and launched a new product line. We saw each other often, though both giving space to navigate our newly reconstructed lives. What had sparked in crisis needed time to find its footing in normalcy. Today was different, though. Today was the grand opening of her flagship store, a gleaming testament to perseverance in downtown Greensboro. I moved through the crowded event, accepting congratulations from former colleagues now more willing to associate with me, since the full Cook Enterprises story had broken in the national press. James had pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony against his family's company. The firm my father built had survived under new leadership. Professor Williams, Claire called, spotting me near the cheese counter. Her smile still accelerated my heart. I've been looking for you. Congratulations, I said, genuinely proud. This place is magnificent. Come with me, she whispered, taking my hand. There's something I want to show you. She led me through a side door and up a flight of stairs to a private tasting room overlooking the main floor. The space was intimate, just a small table, 2 chairs, and walls lined with vintage wines. What do you think? She asked. It's beautiful. I designed it with you in mind. She moved closer. Eden Williams's private reserve. For special occasions only. My breath caught. Claire. 6 months, she said softly. You asked for time, and I've given it. But I need to know if what we started has a future. I took her hands in mine. When I lost my position, I thought I'd lost everything that defined me. What I found instead was myself, the woman behind the robe, the one who'd been hiding for so long. And who is she? Claire asked, her eyes never leaving mine. Someone who loves you, someone who wants to build something real with you. Not just stolen moments between court sessions or strategy meetings. Her smile could have lit the darkest courtroom. That sounds like a partnership proposal. It is, both business and personal. I reached into my pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. Inside was a simple silver key. Move in with me, or I'll move in with you. I don't care which. I just want to wake up beside you every morning. Claire took the key, tears glistening in her eyes. The notorious hard-hearted judge, brought down by artisanal cheese. "And the woman who makes it," I corrected, pulling her close. Our lips met in a kiss that felt like both closure and beginning, an affirmation that sometimes justice looks like two women finding each other against impossible odds. Sometimes it looks exactly like love.